Well, this is week 6. Hard to believe we've already arrived at week 6. And this is the week where I teach a sample lesson, introduction, and guided practice. Now, bear in mind that this goes along with your boxes lesson plan that you have in your week 4 folder. And I really recommend that you get it out and just take some notes. Now, clearly, this is a skills lesson, so it will be different from a knowledge lesson. A skills lesson, I would have already established who knew how to sort from highest to lowest or biggest to smallest or whatever it is I'm measuring. And that happened a week earlier, and it's recorded on a checklist. So I do not have to worry about a pre-assessment in a skills lesson. Okay, so I'm going to start out my group time and pretend that you all are sitting all around me like the boys and girls would be sitting around me. Notice I've got my bag. And if you were 4 years old, you'd probably be saying, teacher, what's in the bag? And well, I'm going to take some guesses. And people might guess that I have an elephant in my bag. That's a great guess. Does anyone else have a guess? Oh, you have a ball in your bag. Another great guess. And I'll take a couple of guesses and then I'm going to move on and go, well, boys and girls, those are all really great guesses, but let me show you what's in my bag. I've got a box. Wow. And I've got another box. And then I have a really big box. And inside my big box, I've got some smaller boxes. And guess what? I've got another box. And inside there, I've got another box. I just have a box. Are they all the same size, boys and girls? Obviously, they would say no, they are not the same size. And have you ever gotten a box? And at that point, they would they'd be like, yeah, my shoes came in a box. My cereal came in a box. My present was in a box on Christmas. My toy was in a box. Everyone has had a box. That's part of my introduction. And what I'm doing here is establishing some prior knowledge. What prior knowledge do children have about boxes? Okay, so that's my introduction, short and sweet. We're talking 5 minutes here, tops. And I am going to skip the assessment piece because this is a skills lesson. I've already done it. Now I'm going right into my guided practice. So boys and girls, I have all these boxes here on my table. Who can help me put them in order from the biggest box to the smallest box? And everyone wants to come up. I'll call one student up and have that student do it. And then I'll ask the other boys and girls, did so-and-so do it from largest to smallest or whatever language I'm using? And if not, someone can come up and be a helper. I'll probably have 2 or 3 people come up and practice doing the sorting. And then after that, I'm going to say, it's time to go to centers. So then I would explain the centers, what we're doing in each center, and then I would dismiss them to centers. Now, obviously, you may have some complaints. I didn't have a turn, and that's okay, because you're going to have a turn some other time. We can't give everyone a turn during our practice time. You'll have time to practice when you're in the center, because all these boxes are going to be in the math center for you to practice on. So then, like I said, you explain what's in the centers and then transition them to the centers. Never, ever, ever let them all loose at once. Say, oh, it's time to go to Centers, bye. Because they're going to stampede to whatever the favorite place is, and it's going to be pandemonium. So you're going to want to find some way of sending them, generally I say use whatever method your teacher uses in the classroom in which you are doing your internship, because that's what they're used to. If you're in your own classroom, you'll find your own way, whether you have rotating groups or you say, everyone that's wearing purple, get up and find a center. Everyone that's wearing shoes with laces, get up and find a center. Everyone whose birthday is in January, get up and find a center. Whatever it is, find your method. There are thousands of them on the internet, but whatever is comfortable for you. The important thing is that you have a transition, not what kind of transition it is, just that you have one. Okay, now totally different. That was a skills lesson. Say, for instance, you are doing a knowledge lesson. My knowledge lesson would be, I'm going to do a lesson on firefighters. So that's a community helper. And I would start out the introduction with my bag. Where's my bag? Bag right here on my lap. And in my bag, I didn't let them do some guessing. And then I would pull out a fireman's hat or a piece of a hose or whatever it is that I could beg or borrow off the fire department. And say, boys and girls, who might use this piece of equipment? And generally they'll come up with firefighter, or fireman, or whatever. And then say, yes, exactly right. And then you go right into your pre-assessment. This is a knowledge. What do you know about firefighters? You can do a web, you can do a KWL chart or just a KL chart if you want to. That's fine with me too. I know I talked about that on last week's video. But that's when you figure out what they know about firefighters. And then when you're all done with the chart, go, well, we have a special treat today because Ms. Jane Smith is here and she's our firefighter that's going to come talk to you today. And you introduce her and she comes in and sits down during your group time. Go, what questions do you have for firefighter Smith? And there you go. And if they don't have, it's okay if they don't have any questions. They're probably so dazzled to see the firefighter in the classroom. Just have her explain what a firefighter does and what the clothes look like, and especially putting on one of those masks, the rebreather masks, because those look kind of scary. She might have the children try one on so they understand that that's just a mask. That's not some person that's going to hurt them if they ever see it in an emergency. That is your guided practice. Now, say, for instance, you're doing a lesson on tornadoes. Okay. Same thing, have something in your bag. My suggestion for a tornado is to make one of those tornadoes in a bottle, because when they see it spinning, they'll guess exactly what it is. And then you say, boys and girls, what do you know about tornadoes? Again, record the information. This is a knowledge lesson. And go right from there. That should take no more than 5 minutes. Go right from there into the guided practice. Now, for a knowledge lesson, guided practice, you're going to need to have a nonfiction book that's at their level. And if you can't find one, that's okay, because you can ad lib anything. You don't have to read them 3 paragraphs on the page. Just ad lib it so that you can get the gist of it that goes with the picture. Or a short informational video, or a visiting expert. Those are your 3 choices. No fun books about tornadoes during guided practice. That's where they're learning. And that's where maybe you walk them out into the hallway and show them where they go. If there really is a tornado drill, that's part of your guided practice. That's where you do your teaching. And then from there, you're going to explain what the centers are and then transition them to centers. And then after centers, there's the closure. And if you're teaching a knowledge lesson, that's when you fill out the rest of your KL or web in a different color so that the children see what they've learned during the lesson. And if you're doing a skills lesson, like my boxes lesson, and I wanted to see if they could sort, then I would have my clipboard with me while they're at centers and just kind of quietly watch to see who could do it and who can't. Use my checklist there. Okay. So I hope that has been helpful, having a sample lesson for you. We're going to go right into our PowerPoint now. Let me go ahead and reposition myself. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so we're at lesson planning 3. This is the last of the 3 sections on lesson planning. Okay. So as you're planning on introducing your lesson, please do not read a story. That unless your lesson is Dr. Seuss week and you're doing a particular book of Dr. Seuss's, you don't need to be reading a story during the introduction. Make sure there's a hands-on experience, like I had the boxes that I could hand around. If I'm doing a lesson on tornadoes, I would have more tornado in a bottle to hand around. If I'm doing a lesson on firefighters, I'd have the firefighter hat to hand around. There's always some hands-on object that you can use. Always relate the lesson to previous knowledge. Remember I said, did you ever have a box? What do you know about tornadoes? What do you know about firefighters? Guided practice. You're practicing a skill, like they sorted them during the guided practice, sorted the boxes during guided practice, or learning about a concept like firefighters or tornadoes. You need a nonfiction book, short factual video, or visiting expert in your guided practice. Transitions, here are just some suggestions for transitions, and you've got this PowerPoint in this week's announcement page, so you can just look through this. But again, I highly recommend using the transition that your cooperating teacher is using. And then just centers. Let's just take a look at centers. There are many ways to get them to centers. This is just one way, by having them in groups. And then they work through this different center stations. And this particular teacher has a ton of centers. You're only required to have 4. Your centers really should and will, if they're good centers, include things that are part of the multiple intelligences. You'll have a multiple content areas. You're going to have, as we talked about before, you're going to have a math and English language arts of some kind, whether it's writing or reading. You're going to have maybe a science, and what you can have 2 ELAs if you want to. And then multi-level, because you're going to have children in your classroom who literally finish the center activity in about 60 seconds. And then they're going to be after you saying, I'm done, teacher, I'm done. What do you want me to do? I'm done. That's why I always recommend that you have multi-level, have at least 2 activities, have the one that particularly practices whatever your major objective is, but have something else, perhaps something that goes with one of the minor objectives, so that they do have more to do than just that one activity. It really makes it so much easier for you, and it's better for them too. You know, in centers, it's wonderful if you have a huge classroom and you've got a writing center and a reading center and a science center and a math center. Yeah, but sometimes we don't have room for all those wonderful centers. It's totally okay to have centers in a tub and have children pull the tubs off the shelves when they're ready to be part of that center, and then just put them on a table. I highly recommend you be a center. And I was always a center for my first graders because that's how I taught reading. There's no way I could have taught reading to 24 6-year-olds all at once. And most of them are at different levels. So you want to have small groups, and that way you can focus on their particular strengths as well as needs. You can also reteach concepts. If someone's having a really, really hard time, you want to challenge those high achievers by extending them, not holding them down so they're along with everyone else if the rest of them aren't that far along. And you can do some assessment while they're in your particular teacher center as well. I just want to point out, centers are not a reward. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a classroom and heard a teacher say, well, you do not get to go to centers today because you did blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, a center is a work area. That's not a reward. They go there to work. So anyway, keep that in mind. Centers are not fun activities, they're work activities, and you probably should have about an hour. I did mine for about an hour and a half, kept them in each center for about 20 minutes, and then they rotated. And that way I got to meet with every single group. There were 4 groups every day. And it worked out well. It was a really handy way for me to teach reading to the first graders. Make sure that you really incorporate your multiple intelligences within the centers. Think about, it's got to have multiple activities. Most of us just are so geared towards talking and giving all the instructions in an oral way, and just it's linguistic intelligence, but not all children learn that way. In fact, most children learn by being logical, mathematical, and they need to touch it, compare it, hold it, see how it feels, count the different individual pieces in order to learn. Spatial intelligence, that comes with art and drawing. Bodily kinesthetic is when you have them move around and do finger plays and dancing in the classroom, whatever it is you're doing that they're using their whole body for. Musical intelligences, most children love to sing and dance. Naturalist, most children love to be outside. Why not take them outside and read a story outside if it's a beautiful day? Interpersonal, most children like to work with other children, and so we put them in groups, or we let them self-select groups, whatever it is that you feel you want to do in your classroom. I highly recommend that you group by reading skills for the morning when you're responsible for teaching reading. If you teach kindergarten, first, second, and third, you're going to have to put them in a skills group so that you've got your high ones on one end that are reading. Say, I would have my high ones in first grade come in with a chapter book. So that was their reading level. So I'd have a group of them. And then I'd have another whole group at the other end of the spectrum who was looking up at the ABCs on the wall and saying, "What's that?" That was another group. And then you have the middle. There's usually 2 groups in the middle. And they're pretty much at grade level working on skills. There's nothing wrong with any of those groups. They're just at different places in their development. And that's why you group them so that they can work at their own pace in your small group and move forward. And then there's the intrapersonal intelligence. This one's really kind of unusual for young children. Most young children, they're really sociable. They want to be with their friends, love working in groups. But every now and then you'll have one that doesn't. There was one particular little boy in my first grade class several years ago who he finally came to me at the end of the first week and he said, I have to tell you, I don't like working with the other kids. He says, oh, I said, well, okay. What do you feel comfortable doing? He said, what I would like to do is do all my work at that back table, under the table, under the table. And I kind of thought about it for a few minutes, and finally I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. You have a week to show me that you're really going to do that and you're going to do your work. And he did. He did a great job. And that's where he did all his writing and reading. And he was very far advanced. But that's what made him comfortable. So, sometimes children tell you exactly what they want and what they need. And he definitely needed that intrapersonal intelligence. So he got it. If you were in my classroom right now, I'd have you work with groups to set up some centers, but that's not going to happen. So we're going to skip that. I just want to show you this. You're always going to have some that work a lot faster than others. That's just normal. So what you need to do, and I had a chart that I put up at the front of the room, and it said, teacher, I'm done. And then I had number 1, write a letter. And I'd have a picture of a child writing a letter. Number 2, write in your journal. And I'd have a picture of a child writing in their journal. Number 3, draw a picture. I'd have a picture of a child drawing a picture. And so on and so forth. And I would teach this skill of figuring out what to do when you are done. Because if you are with your reading group trying to teach reading, you do not want eight children doing one of these. Teacher, I'm done. Teacher, I'm done. I'm done. Because it so interrupts the whole reading group, the whole process of what you're trying to achieve, that you've lost them for that day. So you always want to teach children, they can't read your mind. You teach them what you want them to do. And then I had a 3 before me rule. So when you're working with a group, say you're teaching your reading in small group, they're required to ask 3 friends before they come and ask you. Again, you're always going to have Susie who can't find the red crayon. So teach Susie. You're going to have to ask 3 friends if they know where a red crayon is. And I'm sure someone will figure it out before they get to you. And you teach them about emergencies. Obviously, in an emergency, you come get me right away. What is an emergency? Well, if you have to throw up or you have to go to the bathroom real bad, that's an emergency. But 3 before me for anything besides that. And here's the early finishers again. Teacher, I'm done. You can put anything you want on your chart. I had a chart and I had it laminated. It was on the front whiteboard so that they knew exactly what I expected them to do whenever they were done with whatever they were working on in a center. And I had extra activities in the centers as well that they could work on. There was always a center activity they had to complete, and then they would put it on their table for us to group grade. But once they were done with that, then they could find something else at the center or do one of those early finisher activities. Okay, so we're getting ready here for next week. Next week is going to be lesson plan 1 approval. So I'm really excited to see your lesson plans, your very first ones. you need to go to your Google app, go to Docs, and open your blank document. You can cut and paste the lesson plan, the one that I gave you all in week 4. It's a Word document, so just cut and paste it into there. And then you can write your lesson plan. You need to cut and paste the reflection to the back end of that. So you've got both of them just in one long document. And make sure that you share it with me so that I'm an editor. And that way it'll send me a notice that, oh, so-and-so has their lesson plan done and it's ready for you to look at. Because I like to look at them before I even meet with you for the first lesson plan signing, because trust me, there are always revisions needed. That's normal because you were just learning how to write these. So it's great. It's great that we can talk about it and make revisions and get them just right. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Stop sharing this. The other thing that I was going to talk about today is the checklist reflection. The checklist is right here. That's the involvement in early childhood field checklist. That's what we're talking about. It's on page 8 of your syllabus. At this point, you know what these pieces are. And if you have any questions about them, please let me know. One of the things that you're going to write in this class is an early childhood field checklist reflection. And, I explain things kind of one at a time. So as you're going through this checklist, finishing it up for your 6 points, you're going to write maybe a 2 to 3 page narrative, paragraph form. Number 1, describe how involvement in the organization or organizations, activities, and advocacy activities indicated on your checklist has helped to define yourself as a future educator of young children. Number 2, in what ways has your involvement shown your understanding of the NAEYC ethical standards and other early childhood professional guidelines? And number 3, refer to the checklist in illustrating your engagement in informed advocacy for young children and the early childhood profession. I just want you to know that this assignment is out there, but it's not due for quite some time. You will be turning that in on April the 17th. You will actually receive the Code of Ethics, and we'll have a whole lesson here on ethics and teaching on March the 6th. I just want you to know in the back of your mind that that's something that you're going to include when you're writing this checklist reflection. Okay, so that is it for today. I look forward to reading your lesson plans. I look forward to visiting with each one of you during next week's class. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email and we'll set up a Zoom. Bye.